Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark. It is Monday, April 28th, the final show of April. And as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are we feeling today, Clay, with another week of playoff hockey without our team involved?
As we were yapping about just before we press go live, you see the excitement of all of these. The majority of the series are pretty good. Like all the Western ones were 2-2, all the Eastern ones were 3-1. That's kind of weird, but overall, there's some really good, exciting, tough, memorable hockey being played. There's like something you could pull out of every series, and yes, I will admit that I'm missing it very much. How about you?
Yeah, same boat. No sweeps is great. I'm very much of the mind, especially when it's teams I don't care that much about. The more game sevens, the better. And the West is really shaping up to deliver on that, right? We have 4 series that went to 2-2. Yeah. Dallas got the win tonight. But then on the East Coast, they're all 3-1. So I'm rooting for every team that is in that 2 spot, except maybe New Jersey, because I just don't care about them at all. But no, I'm really, the round of the playoffs is always so exciting. Yeah. More so when your team's in it, because there's all the other stuff you're following and you're trying to see who you might get next round and all that stuff. Yeah. And, no, not that luxury for us this year, but man, this team loves to stay in the headlines anyways.
Yeah, I know we got stuff to talk about, but I was going to ask you, are you in any hockey pools, whether they're free or paid? Are you in any?
Not in the playoffs. No.
Okay. So I'm in 2 pools, but I have 2 teams in each pool. So honestly, Parker, I forget. When anyone scores from any team, I'm sure I have them on one of my teams, but like, I actually don't know who I'm cheering for anymore because like Colorado on one pool, but Dallas in the other. So whatever. I guess when it gets later, it'll keep me at least a small way to keep me interested if it's a team that I don't like. But overall, yeah, I'm with you, and I lament it, and I lament that any news that the Canucks are making right now. I don't know if you call it not positive, but it's so uncertain. Like I would love it if they announced, maybe not today because there's other stuff to worry about, but announce a head coach extension or a college first round pick signing. But
yeah. And it is, you say not positive, but like looking through, I've got a bunch of different tabs open for things that I thought we could talk about. And I don't think any of them are positive. I'd go to venture that they're all negative.
Is there one even neutral one?
I've got the City and Sun run results.
By the way, you're much more athletic than I am. I don't know if you're much of a runner though. I heard my boys were telling me that their times were unreal.
Yeah. So Daniel ran a 36:06, which is crazy. Henrik ran a 37:10. They were both top 300 of everyone.
But Daniel left Henrik in the dust by a minute.
By a full minute. Yeah. That's quick. I did it yesterday. Felt fast. 51:29.
Oh, congrats, man.
Nothing on those numbers.
No, but seriously though, and don't be afraid not to be humble. 51's that's a good time, isn't it? That's a pretty good time.
I thought it was a good time. I cut about 3 minutes off from 2 years ago when I did it last. So
congrats, man. If we raise $1,000 on here, I'll do it next year. No, I'm just kidding. Don't clip it. No one clip that. Maybe that will be part of our next year's bet for the regular season pool, which we will take up sometime in the summer.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. It's good timing.
But what would be the equivalent though? Like, because that is like a disaster for me. So if I lose to you in next year's pool, if I have to run the Sun Run, like what's even equitable for you as a punishment? Honestly,
I don't know. Something that would take an hour and be painful.
Yeah, there 1 hour of all you can eat sushi, and then we'll film it.
That would be tough. Yeah.
All right, we may have the makings of an actual wager next year, but we'll talk about that in October.
Absolutely. All right, I can close that one. Now it's all negative.
Okay, that was good. Thanks for starting the show off on a good word. On a good note.
And thank you to the Line Change for joining as a member. Appreciate it.
Yeah, real quickly, Parker, Line Change, a good guy named Tyler just started a relatively new channel. So thank you for being here and good luck with everything. That's awesome. Thank you for the support.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, let's go to the negative Nellies.
Well, let's start actually another positive.
Oh,
going back to last week, when we were talking about the tampering that Jim Rutherford talking about the Hughes brothers. No tampering charges.
No
We were
tampering.
acquitted on all counts. Everything's clear. Everything's above board. So that's because we were talking about, I think, because that press conference was last Monday.
Was that day?
So we got out of that one.
Yeah. And it's not like you and I are soothsayers or anything, but you and I both said that we didn't think anything was going to come. And I think we were in the majority. Like most people did say that. There were a few people worried, but yeah, all in good fun.
Yes, absolutely. And then I guess one more. Actually, I did just pick this up too. Another piece of good news that we can knock out here is the PWHL franchise coming to Vancouver, playing at the Pacific Coliseum. They have a practice facility that they're going to practice out of. And is that the 8th team, the 9th team?
7th. They're 7th. They're the 7th team, and there's rumors that they want to, for symmetry, right? They want to add one more before the next season starts. Yeah.
Well, you could just go the CFL route and have 9.
My favorite was when the CFL was only 8 and 6 of the teams made the playoffs. So you just couldn't be the suckiest team in your conference.
Yeah, and then there's the crossover, and who knows?
2 teams with the same name for a while. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, there was a space, I think, in between them. Yeah, so we'll have maybe a winning team to talk about next year. That might be nice.
Yeah. It is good news.
I was just some family yesterday, because some family members do the Sun Run, and they were talking about, and they're like, oh, like they might win a championship before the Canucks. I'm like, yeah, well, there's 6 or 7 teams. I'd hope their chances are better off the bat.
Yeah. No, great news for the city. Obviously, the fans showed up when they had that game here early in the year with 19,000. They actually, I don't know how they do that. How do they open up more seats for that than a Canucks game? Anyways, it's great. 19,000. And they're going to be hopefully a good franchise. We got the Whitecaps, we got the Warriors, we got the Abbey Canucks. So honestly, every team is winning right now in the city.
Except the one that I care about the most.
Yeah, the one our show is named
after. I look across the border. My Mariners are playing pretty good baseball right now. They're scoring a lot of runs, which they don't know how to do normally. So yeah, Seahawks had a great draft last week. I think everything's going well, except for all my teams, except for this one.
Yeah. Yet they still give us stuff to talk about. Okay, so we had the Sedins crushing the Sun Run just like you did. We had PWHL. We had no tampering charges for the Canucks. It's just funny saying it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking for funny stuff. Positive stuff. Thank you, Coach Rob, gifting 5 memberships. That's awesome. And Grim, Prugel, Indigo, Karan, and Jovito. That's awesome. Thank you, Rob. You're very generous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Whoops. Sorry. Got a little too excited there. Okay. I like your thumbnail. I always like your thumbnails. By the way, I think you guys know Parker does all the tech and setup for the show. I just tweet it out and try and get people here. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, there's really 3 big ones.
Okay.
Well, sort of 2, I guess, and a couple of them are tied together. Obviously the big storylines around this team as it stands right now are Rick Tocchet and Tom Willander. Yeah. And I think Tocchet we spent some time talking about last week, but we've had a few nuggets come out over the week. We had some tweets near the end of last week. We had Elliot Friedman talking earlier today. And, we can get into that one. And obviously the one's Willander, which I really don't think anything's moved, except we've got a little bit more information under Rick Dollywall on what the grievance / difference seems to be. So we can really start with either of them. They're both similarly negative. And I'd like to allow you to pick which one we start with.
Well, I think because we can tie it in our conversation, let's go with the coaching, because there's also coaching news out of Pittsburgh today. It might not affect who's coming here, but it might affect who might go there, if you know what I mean. So maybe we can start with the coaching overall.
Sounds good. So yeah, Canucks and Rick Tocchet met on Friday night is sort of the lead. Obviously the backstory. Rick Tocchet has completed essentially his contract. He has 1 year left. That is a club option, which means the Canucks could theoretically elect to pick up that option and have Rick Tocchet be essentially a lame duck coach next year, which means he doesn't have a contract going forward. And usually it's just not good practice in the NHL, or really in sports in general, for that to be the case with your coach, because you want some certainty going forward. So the Canucks came out and said, that they will not be picking up the option, but they want to extend him. They want to have a real contract in front of them. They don't just want to pick up that 1 year for picking up that 1 year's sake. And obviously there's back and forth, and it sounds like the Canucks want Rick Tocchet to stay. It sounds like Rick Tocchet partially wants to stay. Quinn Hughes wants Rick Tocchet to stay, which is really the main reason I want Rick Tocchet to stay, is because I trust Quinn Hughes implicitly. But it sounds like there's a couple things in the way. Obviously, one is dollar value.
Yep.
I know it's not, we don't have like exact numbers, but we keep hearing, wants to be one of the highest paid coaches in the league, which, Jack Adams winner, I could see why. Also in a big market with a lot of money, I could see why. He might want to be one of the higher paid coaches in the league. This is also going to be demand, right? We know coaches only last a few years in this league. There's going to be teams getting rid of coaches soon, like what you just mentioned in Pittsburgh. New York, the Rangers, they might have an opening. There's, JT Miller would love that. There's a lot of reasons why he would want to be the highest paid coach. And I think that's, a reasonable request on his part. But it sounds like there's two big wrinkles. One being the lack of a practice facility, which is funny because something that Canucks fans have been talking about forever. And obviously the other one is certainty on Quinn Hughes. So we can dive into really all three of those line items.
Yeah, you set that up well, and I was kind of joking about the whole Mike Sullivan and the Penguins mutually agreeing to part ways. And, I've been hearing a lot of conjecture if the Canucks and Tocchet are whatever, $500,000 apart, he wants 5, they're offering 4.5, or he wants 4 and they're off 4.5, they're offering 4, whatever the numbers are. We don't know for sure, but you're right. He wants to be one of the highest paid coaches in the league. He'll be the highest paid coach in Canucks franchise history. But Mike Sullivan is one of the two guys that will be actually higher than him, that make more than him and John Cooper, I believe. So, and I get that Mike Sullivan, Parker, has won a cup and Rick Tocchet hasn't. So, but as much as I do like Mike Sullivan, a lot of people are saying, no, the Rangers job has his name written all over it, or even Boston, because I believe he's Charlie McAvoy's father-in-law. So there's not nepotism, but there's some inside connection there. So let's say that those are the two probably teams that he could likely go to, Rangers or Boston. So then when you look at Tocchet himself, and money notwithstanding, the practice facility is kind of funny, because remember Jim Rutherford, he joked about it, Parker, at the year-end media, but before anyone asked him, he actually proactively said, I know you guys are going to ask me about it, and I hope to see it done before, while I'm still alive. Ha, ha, ha. And then there's like a nervous laughter from all the media. So realistically, though, Tocchet's smart enough to know that even if they break ground tomorrow, it's not going to be ready for this season, probably be taken till next season. So, but he's expressing his frustration. Aren't the Canucks the only team in the NHL that don't have their own practice facility?
Technically, Calgary doesn't yet.
Oh.
But it's being built. So okay. They're the only team that really doesn't have one. And, there's the whole land's super expensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also like, there's teams in LA and there's teams in New York and there's teams in Chicago and Boston and Toronto and like Montreal, like all these major cities across North America, like San Jose, like all these major cities across North America that are lower echelon teams from a like market cachet perspective that all have practice facilities.
Right.
It's wild that of all the teams in the NHL, you'd think, all right, what team is the least likely to have a practice facility? Where is land expensive and an NHL team is not as important, right? Yeah. That's where I'd sort of think of, and I maybe would think like LA, but LA, the Kings have a lot of history there, but like Dallas has a practice facility, right? Mm-hmm. San Jose is so expensive. And it's it's not a huge market team there, right? Like when they're a competitor, they have fans that come out, but from a day-to-day perspective, it's nowhere near the support the Canucks have here.
Right. Side note: I've been to the Dallas Stars practice facility. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, I was staying at the hotel across the street from it. Parker, what is it like? Part of me says, and I don't know how these negotiations work. I don't know what the Canucks demand, request, require when it comes to finding a partner. I don't know what like a rink like UBC or Kerrisdale or whatever. Pick your rink, David Poirier, Coquitlam. I don't know what their expectations are, but part of me thinks it would be cool to say that you were the Canucks practice facility because they're obviously not going to be there 24/7, so you can rent the rink out and use it at night. So I don't know what's behind these negotiations. I'm just surprised that they haven't found a suitable partner yet. If they're not talking about a brand new one, if they're looking for existing rinks first, but I'm sure there's so much they got to negotiate, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird when you see like the random like, oh, they're practicing at 8 rinks, and it's like that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like I can go on Live Barn and watch because that's just a regular rink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like it's not far, but it's not really close as well.
Mhm.
So it's it is just kind of bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that part of me, I was also thinking before, I'm like, well, you've got Rogers Arena most of the time, but anytime there's any concert in there, like the night
Yes.
before, they might not have it cleaned up, and there's so much prep work and stuff that goes in, or
Yeah.
anything like that, right? That not having that flexibility matters, and I'm sure like a lot of these teams with practice facilities, like they're sort of like the team clubhouse in a way, right? Like
Yes.
they deck them out to be that team's sort of home, right? Whereas if you're at Britannia or some other rink in Vancouver, that might be tricky, right? If you're
Yeah.
just in a barn in the city that you don't put together sort of custom for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, in the same vein, you could sort of have half the building be your private facility and the other half be open for regular skates as needed to get some just to pay for the building. But yeah, it's weird that they're not in a situation where that's happened yet.
Yeah, and I get where it's kind of cool, right? Where UBC students can kind of go see them after
Yeah.
practice, or yeah, you're right. You joked about Burnaby. Yeah, I'm just thinking like I don't play competitive hockey like you. I'm just average Joe, get some exercise, roller hockey, not even ice hockey. But I'm just thinking of some of the dressing rooms, like at the Richmond Ice Center on 6th Road, and yeah, it would be hilarious, man, if that was the Canucks practice facility. I guess that's why it's not, because it
Well,
wouldn't be up to their standards.
so many of these rinks we go to, like my team, if our whole team shows up,
Yeah.
which is like 15 guys,
Yeah,
you're
can't fit.
crawling over each other. Like they're so tight and congested, right? Like some of the newer ones are a little bit better, but
Right.
like Langley Event Center is good, and some of the newer rinks, but
Sure.
you go to like, yeah, you mentioned Poirier. Like you go to Poirier, it's you can fit comfortably 14 guys in there, but you're not fitting the whole. You're not fitting your 23 plus maybe a guy from Abbotsford you're pulling up, plus the coaches, plus your 2 or 3 goalies.
The
Like,
trainers,
you're taking 3 dressing rooms to do that. So the team's split up. Like it's not. It probably doesn't feel very professional for these guys who are guy making $12 million a year is practicing at some random rink. It's I can imagine that would be a little bit off.
Right. Where do you think this goes ultimately? Truly.
I don't know if it's a big enough is it important enough that Rick Tocchet doesn't budge on it? And if Rick Tocchet doesn't budge on it, is it important enough to the Canucks to keep Rick Tocchet to invest all of that money now in that potential practice rink? Now, I imagine if they went to free agency and all the free agents were like, no, we're not signing with you because you don't have a practice facility, that might get some wheels turning. But I kind of doubt that's the case. It seems more of an inconvenience to players than not. But then there's other surveys that come out that say the Canucks are the ownership group is ranked as the number 2 worst. And it's and I wonder if there's some ego in that as well.
Well, I love line changes saying use BC Play, SkyTrain saying tear down the viaducts. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you got that parking lot right next to the rink, the Concord one.
That's true.
That could be good space, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know that it's been a talking point, but to hear, it was kind of jarring, right, Parker, to hear that it might be, and maybe not the biggest factor, but a factor in Tocchet's decision. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But I
Uh-huh.
wonder if it is that, like, again, just sort of having like a sort of second home, right?
Yep.
Because, like, I can imagine a lot of the times when they're practicing at Rogers, and then there's, they might have it set up where they're practicing one morning, then travel because there's a concert that night there or something.
Yeah.
They have to go use some other rink, or their times get limited and they don't have that like freedom. And this is, an organization worth, over $1 billion, $2 billion, whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
You're probably looking at that and be like, why don't we have our own ice rink at this point?
Right. Right.
And then, yeah, it should be tricked out. It should be a cool place to be, right?
Sure. Sure. Okay. So, I think in the bigger, oh no, we're still talking about Rick Tocchet, and then I'll make my bigger point. So the other thing you mentioned, that Elliot Friedman mentioned, is he said it quickly. He said Quinn Hughes' future and direction. So I wonder if we separate that as Quinn Hughes' future and direction of the club, not Quinn Hughes' direction. It's Quinn Hughes' future and the direction of the club, but they obviously are tied hand in hand.
Yeah, that's a little concerning.
Yeah.
But I think it's a reasonable thought, right?
Right.
If you're Rick Tocchet and you've got a 5-year extension in front of you, let's say, I don't know if necessarily if they'd go that many years, but
Yeah.
if you are in that spot where, yeah, you've got, let's say, a 5-year contract ahead of you, and Quinn Hughes is a UFA in 2, right? And he says, "Nah, I'm out." And then suddenly you are back to being knee deep at the start of a rebuild.
Yeah.
And, that's Rick Tocchet's going to be at retirement age at that point. That might not be something he wants to get into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could definitely see that being a factor, but also, I wonder how that gets balanced, right? If he says, well, I'll take a 5-year contract because odds are I get fired in 3 years, like every other coach in the NHL anyways, and then I get a bunch of extra money. Or if it's, I want to sign a 2-year contract and maybe be locked more so to the length of Quinn Hughes. That's definitely something that's reasonable to consider.
Yeah. And, related and not exactly what we're talking about, but just as a sidebar about Quinn Hughes, Parker, a lot of people are saying that Jim Rutherford, by making that comment that we joked about, the non-tampering comment about reuniting the Hughes brothers and knowing that Quinn has a desire to play with his brothers, do you think that at all got Quinn Hughes more angry, more upset, that kind of came out publicly? Or do you think, no, everyone knows this already and that doesn't bother him? It seems like not a lot of things bother Quinn Hughes. Like, when you heard that, did any part of you say, oh shoot, that's not great if Quinn hears this, which he obviously will?
No, I
Okay.
think there's way too much going on for that to really matter.
Right.
And I also got the vibe, I think he said basically that he's just going to disconnect for a while and just disappear. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he hasn't even heard that, who knows? But I think in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty minor.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Fair enough. So I agree with you when you agreeing that should be a big factor for Tocchet is what Quinn Hughes wants. And we've joked around about when it comes to free agent decisions or contracts or extensions, just basically going to Quinn and saying, what do you want to do? What's going to help make you stay here in Vancouver? But I don't want to think about this team without him. And I know if you trade him, obviously you're not going to let a guy like that guy walk. If you catch any whiff that he's not coming back, you have to reap assets for him. But you're always going to be losing that trade, I think, because he's the best player in that trade.
Yeah. Unless you're getting, an enormous haul with, an equal caliber player or similar to, you're never winning that trade. Unless you're getting another Norris candidate back.
Right.
Yeah, because that will now your first pair is Marcus Pettersson and Phil Hronek, which is okay, but it's way worse than Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. Do you want Rick Tocchet back?
I don't know.
Wow.
I really like, because again, you sort of look at the results, right? One good year, one bad year. That's 50-50. Compared to what we've had lately, that's pretty good. However, a lot of stuff happened this year that I think made the Canucks worse than maybe they could have been. And I don't think a lot of that's necessarily his fault. However, I also like having more than like 24 shots in a game. Like it, because I felt like once every 4 games, there would be at least one period where we'd have 3 shots or 4 shots. Right.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough to feel when you're down 3, even though the Canucks did have some crazy comebacks this year. When you're down 3, it feels like you're a little more out of it. But also it's stressful, all these like 2-1 tight games. Whereas, I don't know if I want more high flying, because maybe that's also worse. It might just be the grass is always greener. But if this is going to be a team that's missing the playoffs, I'd rather it be a fun missing the playoffs. But I would rather a more boring team that makes the playoffs than a fun team that misses.
Right. Sure.
Because I had way more fun last year than I did in, the year that, we beat Colorado 7-6 in that crazy game. That was fun, but I'd much rather be making the playoffs. Because those games, even though, again, that whole Nashville series, I don't know if we had more than like 18 shots in any of those games, it felt like, but they were fun and stressful, and I loved it.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Just as you say, you'd rather see boring hockey but advancing in the playoffs. Yeah, same analogy to I'd rather see a boring win for the most part. I'd rather see a boring win than an exciting loss. Like I'll take an exciting loss once in a while as long as it doesn't hurt our playoff chances. So we saw Tocchet try and play that run and gun game at the start of the season. Like, remember you were at the season opener against Calgary. I think we talked about this, right? You there? That looked like a lot of fun game.
Yeah, it was. It actually was a really fun game. Heartbreaking one. They got a point. Yeah. But yeah, it was crazy how much that really hinted towards what the season was going to be. It was, hey, this team is going to blow some leads. And that was not something we had seen in the past. I remember going to that third period, just like, well, this team doesn't lose games of this situation. And they ended up losing and shattered the worldview a little bit.
Yeah. I know that was a Wednesday night, so it was a church night for me, but I was listening to it or had it on my phone or something. And I couldn't believe the number of 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s. Sprong looked amazing. Like it was fun for a day.
Yep.
Okay, so you're 50-50 on Tocchet. I do like Tocchet. I think he's really good. I know that players speak glowingly about him, and I do think he managed his team relatively well, not perfectly, relatively well through a very tough season. So I would love him to be back, but I understand. To me, tell me you agree with this. The longer this goes, to me, the worse it means. If you want Tocchet back, because I part of me thinks that yes, they got to negotiate, but if you know you're coming back, why don't you say so at least within the week and put all those rumors to bed, as opposed to the longer it goes, more openings come out. Although I understand that the Canucks have not given Tocchet permission to talk to other teams yet because they obviously want to sign him here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And as more teams have openings that open up, Pittsburgh is the obvious one, because that one came through, earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at, I actually didn't realize that coach salaries were public, or at least somewhat known. But we can see, Tocchet earned $2.75 million this year.
Yeah.
And then, Sullivan was at 5.5, Cooper's at 5.3. So he probably wants to be, around the 4.5 to 5.
What's Berube? High fours, right?
Yeah, Berube is 4.5.
4.5. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't remember. I saw this earlier this week. The date that Tocchet's contract expires
is
I feel like it's earlier than like June 30th, but I might be mistaken. I don't know when coaches' contracts end. But I wonder if we get a little closer to that date, right? There's the opportunity for him to make a move earlier while still negotiating with the Canucks, right? So I'd say every day that passes, the odds probably get slightly worse. But I think that's going to be the same with most things. But there's 7 teams now that don't have a head coach. And Rick Tocchet is going to, I'm sure his agent's having some, quiet conversations on what options are out there, and maybe there's a team saying, yeah, we'll pay 5, and that's going to be pretty enticing.
Sure. So the theme that's going to tie the second story Tom Willander into is money, right? So you mentioned that they're probably $500,000 off right now, which that seems like a lot for me and you, but in a big scheme of things for a Jack Adams winner. So Tom Willander, we've heard that they're even less off, maybe 2.5, $200,000 away on bonus agreements, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I said last year that I just didn't get it. There's some people who are like, oh, but he's never played a game. Why would you, why? Oh, he should earn that $200,000. No, it's not. That's not how this works. It's just not. You draft these players that high up, they get some leverage. They don't get a lot. They are tied to you till they're like 26 years old.
Yeah.
You can heavily restrict their contracts. You can, if you slide their ELCs, you can make it so they're not even offer sheet eligible in their first RFA deal. And even when they are offer sheet eligible, no one uses offer sheets really. So they're not really going to drive salaries up that high. Arbitrations, this whole thing. It's free agents join or young players join the league get screwed over a good bit, right? Their leverage is quite low. And, a lot of the time, they provide a lot more value than they're going to get paid, right? You look at Quinn Hughes on his RFA contract making $7.85 million. That's a steal because he was an RFA. But when he goes into UFA, he finally gets the opportunity to make the 13 or whatever he's going to get. For something to be $200,000 apart, when we're talking about a league with a salary cap near 90 million, over 90 million now, right? 92 and a half.
Yep.
You are talking about 0.3% of your salary cap. You are talking about, a $1 billion organization or $2 billion organization, whatever they're valued at, that is trying to pinch a penny on $200,000, right?
Yeah.
Where, what's generating more value for the organization, this up and coming rookie prospect that you're hoping is going to be a staple on your D line, or, one of your middle managers in the sales side of the organization. Right. Because there's people there that are making $200,000 a year that they are saying, that's where they're going to pinch pennies on. And just like, it doesn't pass the smell test because it's a team that spends to the cap every year.
Yes.
Right. Is Patrick Allvin looking at this being like, man, we really can't spare that $200K, but we'll go give, Drew O'Connor $2.5 million a year. Like it doesn't make any sense. So this is what we have to determine. Is it that they aren't willing to just sign the standard ELC contract, which doesn't really make sense? Or are they trying to sort of build this bridge between the Canucks and Willander to make a trade easier to sell, right? Are they planning on using Willander to go get a decently high-end center to be your 2C or a high-end winger? And maybe that's easier to sell if we couldn't come to a contract agreement with this guy. We were going to lose him anyways. Now we're going to get a player that projects with a lower ceiling in the long term to fill in a hole that we have.
Yeah, no, well said. And Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, Parker, he talks about that the Canucks, they have an internal structure, right, for a bonus structure for these rookies, these ELC contracts that they don't want to waver off of. They don't want to set a new precedent. But and he'll be the first to say, and I agree with him, and we've said it too, is you kind of want. So if the player doesn't hit certain bonuses, you're not even have to pay that $200,000 anyways. But if he does, that's good. That means he's probably better than you expected. The team's probably better than you expected, and you're probably further in the playoff chase than you expected. So you're right. It's maddening. It's perplexing. If it truly is about $200,000, and we're not the only one saying this, it's confounding. It's weird.
Yeah, we spent some time last week, and I listed every single potential bonus and what they were, and it was like 10 goals, 40 points, like an all-star selection. Like it was all these things that it was like top 4 in defenseman ice time with a minimum of 42 games played or something. Like it was all these things. It's like, well, those are all things that are worth $200,000 for an NHL team. it's lunacy.
So we have the Willander, 200 grand difference. We have the Tocchet, and this per year. We have the Tocchet, 500 grand difference. So we're talking about 700 grand. Is Aquilini in trouble? I thought they raised prices. They got the refurbishment of the seats and the arena. I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. How much what prices were raised by like 20%, right?
Correct.
And there's 18,000 something seats in the arena.
Correct.
I'm sure the average ticket cost per game probably went up by $10.
Sure.
So one of your 41 home games, just that price increase, that's the Willander gap.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right?
That's good math.
2 games, there's your Tocchet gap.
Yeah.
So of your price increase alone, 3 of your 41 games you've paid for all these problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the other 38 games, you can pocket all that.
Right.
Not to mention beer is probably going to get to $21 or $22 or whatever it is. Like everything's going up. Yeah. It's crazy that's what we're pinching pennies over, because the average salary they're paying these guys per game for the whole team is over $1 million. And the gate you're bringing in from, your average Tuesday night against Anaheim is more than enough to cover those.
Sure. And I get that maybe with Tocchet, you might think there's another coach out there or whatever, but with Willander, that's kind of stuff like that will get around if you don't treat your players well, or if you don't want to, sign your coveted first round draft picks well. That's going to get around, and you just don't want to have the reputation of being a cheap team, a team that doesn't take care of its players. Yeah, it's so tough to say. It's really, I as a Canucks fan want a resolution to both of these, and I don't know if we're going to get it this week.
Yeah, it's frustrating, especially the Willander one, because I don't know what sort of timeline we expect that to get fixed on. Right? Is it something they're going to? Is it a trade that they make fairly soon? Is it a trade that they make close to the draft? Do they end up signing him this week? Do they end up signing him in June? This could just drag on for 2 months. It could all be fixed tomorrow, and that's what sucks about not being in the playoffs. Is there's 16 other teams that they're all too busy to worry about what you're doing over here. Right.
Good point. Yeah.
So they're all, I don't think Colorado's GM is worrying too much about, can I make a trade in the offseason for Tom Willander? He's thinking, hey, what do I need to get my coaches, get my team to bounce back on Wednesday night. Yeah. Right. So it's, you're really, it's this weird mushy middle that the Canucks are sort of found themselves back in on a lot of different situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's very fair. Let's have it. Would you want to do? Actually, let's wrap up the Canucks talk. Then we can do a few minutes on the playoffs, and then we can go to the people to wrap up. So, what's your prediction on each? I know you were 50-50 on Tocchet, whether you wanted it back. But what's your prediction on actually what's going to happen?
I think I'm 55% sure he will come back.
Yeah.
So slightly more than 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm fair. I think that's fair. Yeah.
And then on Willander signing or being traded, I have no idea. It seems so silly, but like if you'd asked me this 2 months ago, I'd be like, yeah, 100% he gets signed, because no one doesn't get signed anymore. Right. Unless there's a bunch of smoke around the player not wanting to. But now I'm, again, close to 50-50, but it's because I have no idea what their intentions are. Is it really this $200,000, or are they trying to trade him? Yeah. And that's, it's a weird spot to be in.
Yeah. No one from the organization is obviously going to say, oh yeah, we need a 2C. And we need to trade for him because there's nothing on free agency. So we're going to use Tom Willander. We're going to use Jonathan Leckernacki. We're going to use DP. They're not going to come out and say that, but you look at it, those are the chips that we have right now, and our first round draft pick, right? It's those 4, I think. Yeah. Maddening. I'm with you. I'll give it 60-40 that Tocchet comes back, and maybe I'm voting with my heart and not my head, but I do think somehow in a sleepy day in the summer, we find out that Tom Willander signed a 3-year ELC. That's my prediction.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay, good. What are your thoughts on the first round so far?
Look, I mean, I'm loving that no series are really a blowout.
Yeah.
Like even Winnipeg St. Louis, that felt over off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
and Connor Hellebuck became playoff Connor Hellebuck.
Oh,
um,
yeah.
Dallas, Colorado was always going to be one of the best series.
Yeah.
Two teams that have been very recent contenders. Landeskog coming back, obviously a big key. Rantanen being back against Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas was really good tonight, but that just watching these two teams play is so much fun.
Yeah.
All around every series, I have not paid 1 second of attention to Carolina, New Jersey. There's just nothing there for me. But every other series, I've at least spent a bit of time watching.
Yeah.
Whether it's hate watching the Vegas Golden Knights or the Edmonton Oilers or the Toronto Maple Leafs, really,
Sure.
or like trying to see if a team like Montreal can make something happen.
Yeah.
Florida's environment is awesome right now. They were buzzing
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
That building was going crazy, and I like seeing them play well against Tampa. I think it's a fun matchup. But I'm glad that nothing is cut and dry sweep. Every team's still got a bit of a shot at the very least. And if Toronto finds a way to blow a 3-1 lead, be fantastic.
Yeah. I am surprised, and I'm glad for the sake of hockey that the Wild and Blues have tied up their two series against Winnipeg and Vegas. And man, I did not anticipate the hate in the Montreal Washington series. You got Wilson and Anderson fighting in the bench. That was really funny.
It's been a lot. There's been a lot of drama.
Yeah.
We had an e-bug watch at one point.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I still think, I don't even know if this is what I predicted my pool is, but I think the winner of Dallas, Colorado and the winner of the Florida series, those two teams, whoever wins that, they'll be beat up a bit, but I think that could be a Stanley Cup final, whoever comes out of those two. Perhaps.
Yeah,
But I guess
sure could be.
Washington or Carolina will have something to say about that, I guess. But and then Vegas, yeah, and the whole LA Edmonton thing, like LA, all four games, 3 of the 4 have almost been the same. LA goes up early, and then they completely disintegrate in the third period.
They're trying to play Rick Tocchet hockey, man.
Yeah, Kuzmenko's like, I thought I escaped. No, that's funny. Wow,
It's
wow.
crazy that every single one of those games has been 6-5, 6-2, 7-4, 4-3. Really, like, again, Edmonton is a goalie away from being so scary. They just could not fix that problem.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny with LA, the biggest difference this year is that they can score now. They can score, yet it's like their bread and butter. They've gotten away a bit, at least in the third period. They've gotten away from their defense. So, pretty exciting stuff. And I hope, naturally the play slows down a little bit. Guys start to get a little bit more beat up, and the upset factor is less as the rounds progress. But it's by the time you get to the end, it's still the hardest trophy to win, right? And that's what makes it so exciting and so enthralling as a hockey fan.
Absolutely. So big day tomorrow. I mean, is there 4 games tomorrow? Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting day to sit on the couch after work. I'm loving the Ottawa Toronto. Those are fun.
Yeah. You think Ottawa can do it, or at least win another one?
Probably not. They might win another one. I don't really see them getting back in it. Toronto looks really good. Apparently, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's a problem.
Wow.
But I just love these rivalries. Like, they're so fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to run this by you. So Irvin sent to me something, and it basically talks about I don't know if you saw this, a lineup of all ex-Canucks playing in the playoffs right now. So, okay, the forwards maybe not so good. Kuzmenko, Lazar, Gaudette, Pearson, Heimer, Beauvillier, VC, Dowling, Podkolzin, Gadjevich, Gauntz, and Sprung. Okay, so maybe not the best.
Hold on. Gauntz and Highmore actually playing, or are they just on playoff teams?
Highmore's playing. I don't know about Gauntz. Yeah. On D. Okay, but on D, a bit better. Forsling, Tanev. That's a good first pairing. OEL, Chatfield, and then Schmidt and Shen. The Luke Shen, of course. And then your goalies are Markstrom and DeSmith. So It's okay, but it's just maybe it's just more jarring to see how many names there are, and that D is pretty good actually.
Brendan Gaunce is not playing.
Okay, is he on a roster?
He played 12 NHL games this year and 39 AHL games. So I don't know if he's actually on their roster.
Okay, that's
Matthew Highmore. He has played one game and had 4 penalty minutes. Good for him.
Who's he play for? Ottawa?
Ottawa.
Oh, okay. And who does Gons play for? I don't even know.
Minnesota.
Okay. Wow.
Well, but more so Iowa, but
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's tough. And then of course, Miller and Susie are not playing because they were just as disappointing as us. Okay, you can tell I'm really stretching, not for content, just stretching it in my lament when I'm talking about 20 ex-Canucks that are still playing in the playoffs, even if they're playing in the AHL.
Yeah, it's tough.
You been following the Abbey Canucks at all? They advanced to the second round.
I saw they won. Yep, she loves the shutout in game 3, which is good. Noticed the barn wasn't super full. It didn't seem like, but it is kind of a.
What does that place hold?
Nightmare there, at least.
Yeah. What does that place hold?
6,300.
Okay, I thought I heard a number of 56, which is pretty big. Like if it was 56, but maybe that's not right.
I just guessed, to be honest with you.
Sorry, it 56 attendance.
7,000 for hockey.
7? Okay. Yeah, I like to get out there more. I keep saying that, but I never do. I'm just all talk.
It's a bit far, especially from your neck of the woods.
Yeah, but who knows? I know friends that are contemplating like flying out to Edmonton or LA to watch one of the games. Actually,
that'd be sweet.
Yeah, they got to get their playoff hockey fix in. All right. Anything else before we go to the people? Anything else on your mind, Canucks related or not?
I don't think so. Just scrolling a little bit, but
I was going to say one thing about Suter and the media availability. Did you find it interesting that? Well, I'm not sure if you got a chance to see it. Petey. So the first group that came out to talk to the media was Hughes, Demko, Besser, and P. Suter. And then a second group came out. PD was part of the third group. And of course, he dominated, not he, but all the questions were to him. I felt bad for actually the other 3 guys. But I found it interesting that they put Suter with the 3 big ones of Besser, Demko, Hughes. So understandably, he only got one question. It was more like a sympathy question, but it was basically, congratulations on your career year. This will probably translate into a big payday. And I like him a lot, Parker, but what stood out to me is he just flat out said, yeah, we'll see if I'm here next year. Like, that's kind of like what he said.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a fair response, though.
Yeah.
He probably has some inklings on what's going on behind the scenes, so.
Yeah, I know. And it's just kind of, I'm sure they all talk and they all can see what's happening, but maybe wishful thinking, man, that I want him to say, oh, I loved it here. This place is a great place to raise my family, blah, blah. But maybe you got to be here for longer than 2 years before you say stuff like that.
Potentially.
All right. I think we should go to the peeps for the last 10 minutes.
Let's do it. I'm going to scroll a bit, see what I can find.
Awesome. We got 52 people watching on YouTube. Thank you. And we have 330 watching on X. So thank you. But if you want to ask us a question, you got to get into the YouTube. Otherwise, we won't see it.
I think it's supposed to show any X ones in here, but I don't know if it works. I also don't think people really use it for commenting. So
Right. And I don't even know if that number is proper. I think it's just as it scrolls past people's feeds.
Yeah, I think the people behind X are trying to bump those numbers up a little bit for themselves.
Yeah. There you go. All right, friends, ask us some questions. Otherwise, we'll end early. But ask us some questions for the last few minutes or so.
I'm seeing a lot of interesting cheering going on in the crowd. We've got Shannon going for the Oilers and Taylor going for the Kings, so a little bit of a battle there.
Yeah,
I just don't know how you could pick any of those teams.
So Irvin did ask a question from X, and then we'll get to yours, Edmund, right after that. What do you think of these sites? 32, I don't know what's there. East Broadway, Heatherlands, Aquilina Center.
Home of Sparky's Film Rentals.
Is 3200 East Broadway?
Street viewing. It looks like a street. Looks like some sort of industrial building there. Hold on. We go to satellite. There's like a big warehouse here. I guess that's what you're referring to.
Sure.
I guess you would kick everyone out of that warehouse. Sure.
What's Heatherlands? Can you type that in? I hope nothing bad comes up.
Heatherlands. Is that right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what this is.
Irvin, what is it? Stop making Parker type weird stuff in Google Maps.
The Heatherlands. Where is this? West 35th. I don't know Vancouver streets at all.
Okay,
so
that's near my office then. Okay. All right. We'll do some research, Irvin, but thank you for showing us that X questions do come through. Edmund says, do you think if Vancouver hires a new coach, what is more likely? Matty Malhotra gets promoted or bring in someone else?
I don't think they're going to go with Malhotra as a first time.
Mm-hmm.
He's been coaching for what, 6 years or so, I want to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tricky. It's probably the cheap option. If they want to save $200,000 and put that towards maybe a young defenseman. But they're, it's risky, right? They can always, you pick someone from the carousel and they're sort of a known quantity and you sort of know what you're going to get. Fresh voice, has some cachet. But if you do go that route, you could have the Marty St. Louis effect, right?
Yeah.
And who knows how long that lasts. But a lot of times new coaches do really well on the first time with their team, right? You look at Willie Desjardins, right? Teams rolled 4 lines and did nothing else and put up 101 points. And maybe a new coach has that opportunity as well. So it's I just don't really see it. I just see this being like, because after they went with Travis Green, they got rid of him for Boudreau, which is, very well recycled name. And, obviously Rick Tocchet, who had been a coach before. And I could just sort of see them continuing down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The Malhotra one, if the Vancouver position opens, Malhotra, you can point to a lot of the development that he's done, but you're right. He has Toronto experience. He has this experience, but would the Canucks risk a brand new NHL coach when you've already gone through 3 in the past 3.5 seasons? Yeah, that's tricky.
Right. But you do look at, he's got, the other thing is, what was it? 3 years as an assistant here, 4 years as an assistant in Toronto.
Right.
And then this is his first ever head coaching gig. Is currently in Abbotsford. Now, great results, right? Team went 44-24-4. Made a playoffs, got their home series and won that. I'd be a bit surprised to see like a 1-year head coach in the AHL level and then and then move on to being an NHL head coach. But if there's demand around the league for him and you're sort of of the thought, well, we're losing Tocchet anyways, and we're either going to lose Malhotra to some other team or we can make him our coach. Maybe that's something that they'll try to balance.
That's a good point. And can you look up, where was Spencer Carberry? Like, was he straight out of the A? Because he's going to win Coach of the Year. Yeah, he's going to win the Jack Adams this year.
He's the Caps coach.
Right. But, sorry, where did he go last year?
So he was their coach last year as well.
Sorry. Yeah.
But 2 years ago, he just had 2 years as the Leafs or as an assistant for the Leafs. And then, but before that, he had 3 years as an AHL head coach in Hershey.
Gotcha.
And before that, he was the head coach in Saginaw in the OHL. And then he had 5 years of head coaching in the ECHL as well. So, age-wise, they're similar, but Carberry's been coaching for 15 years.
Gotcha.
Whereas Malhotra's been an assistant for, 7 and a head coach for 1. Whereas Carberry, like I said, actually had 9 head coaching years before across 3 different leagues before he got an NHL head coaching job.
Gotcha. Scott Chernover, that's a good question. Do you know if fired coaches still get paid?
They do if
they do, right?
Their contract wasn't done.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't know if there's some sort of thing where if another team hires you, it might null it out, or you might start paying the other. Because I know that happens like the NFL and stuff. But
right.
You know, I don't know exactly how that works.
I am happy. Park and I both talked about we likely don't think Sullivan's coming here because the Rangers and Boston are likely going to be much more heavily favored. But he does say if the Rangers don't land Sullivan and Vancouver gets him, then do we pencil in a Crosby trade to Vancouver? There's our 2C.
Yeah, you might have to pay a lot. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be getting rid of him anytime soon.
Yeah. Nice contract though, 8.6 or whatever it is because of his number, or
8.7.
8.7. Yeah, very good. No, Shannon, it has not been confirmed. That is the biggest piece of news that all Canucks fans are waiting for. But yeah, my theory at least is the longer it goes, the less likely he's coming back. But yes, it has not been confirmed yet. Oh, Heather Lands is a Heather Place, 3 blocks north of VGH. Okay, thank you. We got time for one more question. So if you have a doozy for us, we'll be happy to take it. It can be anything about the Canucks, anything about if you want Parker to look up something else on Google Maps.
Yeah, I've got it. West 37th and Heather Street.
That's right near my office.
It's crazy. It's like a block east of Van Dusen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like a bit of a drive from. I guess you're just straight down Canby from Rogers, but
right. You 2 more. Calvin, does Sullivan get fired? Well, the nice way they say mutually decide to part ways, but obviously one party, either Sullivan or Pittsburgh management, has to start that conversation. But if it's not a true firing and not a true leave, we'll never know. That's the nice way of putting it, is they mutually part ways. Do you have any offer sheet targets? St. Louis had obviously worked for them in targeting Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg from the Edmonton Oilers last year, and it might propel them to a first round win over Winnipeg. I don't even know who RFAs are, to be honest with you, so I'm probably not the best.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit last year. Guys like Will Cooley, Mackie Samoskevich, Maverick Bork. Like there's names out there. I just don't see it happening really. So I'm not going to get too real.
Yeah, needle mover. But kudos to the Blues for finding 2 guys that they probably feels like a bit of an overpay at the start, but they both played really well for the Blues this year.
Yeah, it worked for them. But they are in the mix against Winnipeg. Who knows? Maybe they get through. They play Edmonton, and then those 2 guys go crazy and score a bunch of goals. That would be cool. Right. But it's just something that like it never happened, and then it happened a couple times, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're getting offer sheets all the time now." Mm-hmm. I wouldn't get too far ahead of yourself. I would be surprised if we really saw any this year.
Right. And we'll end with this one. Edmund, if Willander gets traded, would you rank it on the same level as Cody Hodgson being traded? A little bit different in that Hodgson would have, played a bunch of games for us, and then we traded him. Whereas Willander, if he gets traded, it would be before he even dons a jersey. So that's I think a big fundamental difference, I think, in that comparison. Yeah, we got Zach Cassian out of it, so I don't know. We'll see. I hope if we trade Willander, we get more than a Zach Cassian.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to wrap up there. We are going to bi-weekly at this point. So no show next week, but we will be back on May 12th. So make sure you subscribe, have notifications on for all of that. If you missed any part of the show, you can rewind back to the beginning here on YouTube or wherever, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of 15 or so minutes. Clay, any parting words this Monday night?
No, always great to chat with you, Parker. There's always something to talk about this team. But yes, I think the bi-weekly is wise given our own schedules, our own priorities, what we got going on, and the fact that the Canucks news will be less and less as we go, but we can still get together, wrap up our pool, talk about the NHL playoffs and anything else that comes up. So if anyone is not sick of hockey talk, I'll be doing a quick show tonight in about 15 minutes. So you're welcome to come there. But otherwise, Parker, no, it'll be good. This marks the end of our regular season, I guess. I don't know why I put the quotes up so late, but yes, the end of our regular season.
Excellent. Well, folks, thank you all for joining. Have a good Monday night, and we will see you in 2 weeks.